on any crime, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, that completely flies in the face of that principle. Because you're saying, well, there's no way to prove who is driving it, so we're just going to arbitrarily ticket the owner of the vehicle. And then they get by this. Here's the next objection. They say that, well, these tickets don't come with points, and they're not actually a crime. They're a civil penalty infraction, whatever. They come up with a different name for it. And then by doing that, they say, well, we're not actually charging you with a crime. This is just infraction that requires you to pay us money. But it's not a crime. It's not a crime. We didn't charge you with a crime. We didn't presume you were innocent. We didn't presume you were guilty until you could prove that you were innocent, because there's no crime. There's no problem. You just need to give us money.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
So Ford is kicking Shelby to the curb. They are getting rid of Shelby, which, what does this mean if you are a Ford fan? What happens to the Shelby GT500? All of that cool stuff. We'll discuss that. Also, new speed camera technology is coming into effect here in Colorado, and I don't like it one bit. That might not surprise you if you listen to this show often. My opinion on this, you may already know that I do not like automated enforcement systems like this. I think it is a terrible idea, and it just got worse. Yes, it got worse, and we'll discuss that. Speaking of those automated enforcement systems, I have a confession. I got busted. We'll discuss that as well, and maybe tie it into the speed camera story. No, it was not a speed camera. But also, I want to talk about some of your comments as they relate to some of the controversy surrounding E85 fuel. We covered that recently on the show with friend of the show, Brian, and a tuner, a mechanic, gave his thoughts on it. And there were a lot of comments on that, particularly on the podcast and the YouTube version of that. So I want to address some of those thoughts. We'll also get to some of your emails and more. It is the Automotive ADHD Show. I'm your host, Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Now, I saw something recently. I'm no stranger to Toyotas, though I cannot claim to be the Toyota god. That is just a guy, Jim Miller, and he is the real Toyota god. I have some Toyotas. Jim, again, I don't know what's going on. Jim's got all the Toyotas in the universe. He is collecting them. He is putting all the Toyotas on his Infinity Gauntlet so he can, take over the universe with Toyotas. Presumably. That probably is his plan. So, having said that, I do find myself browsing classifieds, auctions, and different things occasionally for various Toyotas. I do like them. And you might have seen this as well. If you didn't, this is at Mecum Auctions. There is a 1996 Toyota 4Runner for sale. And you think, oh, yeah, all right, cool, a third-gen 4Runner. Big deal. Big deal. Well, this 4Runner is at Mecum Auctions, which in and of itself is kind of a big deal, because the stuff that happens at Mecum Auctions, say it however you want. There's a right way to say it. I'm just not going to look it up. But they have a number of things in the list of cars that they are auctioning coming up here. And they're a big auction. I mean, think of them kind of like Barrett-Jackson, for example, same type of stuff. Typically collector cars, typically exotic stuff, unusual cars. And I want to, before I show you this 1996 Toyota 4Runner, don't tell Jim Miller about this, by the way. He doesn't actually listen to the show, so I can talk about it here. But let's look at the auction schedule. Upcoming auctions. Let's see. Indy is the next auction here, May 8th through the 16th. And if we look at let's go to view lots here. And I'll switch this over on video so you can see some of the cars right now over at Mecum. And they have, let's see, a 2003 Ferrari Enzo. That's cool. 2014 Ferrari LaFerrari. The Ferrari. The 1965 Shelby GT350R Fastback. That's pretty cool. One of 34. Very cool. Mustang Eleanor. Let's see. A 63 Ferrari 250 GT. Cool. 1972 Lamborghini Miura. I could keep going, but I think you get the gist. Ooh, a Bugatti EB110 Supersport. Hey, that's also pretty cool. That's no Toyota 4Runner. All right, so then let's look at this Toyota 4Runner, because I feel like it's a little out of place over there at Mecum Auctions. And this 4Runner here, we'll pull it back up here on video. Take a look at that. And by the way, that's a great reminder. If you're listening on the radio, you can catch this show on video as well. YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and more. All of the places where, fine shows and this one are downloaded. But make sure to subscribe to it on YouTube, and then go over to Spotify and give it 6 stars over there. Every star helps. Every star helps. Every star above 5, actually, helps. You can't just do 5. So anyway, this 4Runner right here is very, very, very clean. Wow, it's very clean. In fact, it only has 6,951 original miles. I don't know why. Why do we say original miles, by the way? Side note, tangent. Like, aren't all the miles original? How would the miles not be original? Are they like fake miles? Inauthentic miles? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you rebuild a car and then you start the mileage counter over from 0, but that's not how that works. Why do we say original miles? Let me know in the comments on YouTube and Spotify. Why do we say original? Anyway, so they are estimating, Mecum is estimating that this 4Runner will go for $35,000 to $45,000. That's their estimate. And it is particularly clean. It is in the color Desert Dune Metallic, which is a fun way to say it's gray. It has a tan interior. And I will say, with these 4Runners, I have not seen, I've been used to these 4Runners. I've seen a bajillion of them. Jim Miller probably owns half of the ones that are in existence, at least. And it's remarkably clean. We'll cut back over on the video here. You can see the interior. I mean, this thing is showroom mint. I mean, somebody bought this thing and put 6,000 miles on it. And why do people do that? I don't know. We'll discuss that. But having said that, this car is very clean. It's very nice. You will probably never find another 4Runner like this outside of a Toyota museum. And I will say that I think when I was in Japan, I went to two different Toyota museums. I don't know if I saw a 4Runner there. They call them Hilux Surfs there in Japan, but you get the idea. They're the same vehicle. But I mean, just clicking through some of the pictures on here, this thing is minty. It is very nice. So where does that leave us? Are we in a world right now? Are we living in a world where a 1996 4Runner, I mean, you possibly remember when these things were brand new. You might have bought one new years ago. And these are classic cars now. I think this is going to be interesting to watch this auction, because the entire reason it's here, it's not particularly a rare 4Runner. It's not a rare trim of it. This is a pretty basic version of the 4Runner. It's got a 3.4 liter 5VZ FE V6 engine, 183 horsepower, 217 pound-feet of torque. Doesn't appear to be any sort of TRD off-road special edition, none of that type of stuff. Doesn't appear to have any diff lockers. I mean, this is a very, very basic Toyota. It was sold new at Continental Toyota in Countryside, Illinois, by the way. And yeah, it's a museum car. And I mean, when you look at the underside of this car too, when was the last time you saw a Toyota 4Runner looking that clean underneath? I bet you haven't. So, unless you bought this one new. And so, where does that leave us with this, though? Okay, because yeah, it's cool to ogle at the fact that, wow, look at that, that's a low mileage 4Runner. But where does that What does that mean for this? Are we seeing the next genesis of another collector boom on these? And I think it'll definitely be an interesting one to watch, because if this gets 45,000, if this gets the upper end of the Mecum estimate, that could certainly be a possibility. If it goes beyond that, if this thing goes beyond into $50,000, $60,000, which I you know what? I could go either way on it. I could say, nah, those things are everywhere. They're not even that old. We're 30 years. Yeah, 30 years is old, but it's not that classic of a car. It's not that special of a car. But then again, those types of cars sometimes are the ones that end up getting big money. I remember going to Barrett-Jackson years ago, and I saw a C10 Chevy pickup. And I had a friend in high school who had one of those. It was a beater. It was totally beat to the ground. It was maybe not completely beat, but it was a beater truck, right? And then you see a clean example of one go for like $100,000. And part of that has some collectability in and of itself, doesn't it? A common car that nobody saved them in nice shape. Will that mean that you'll see these things hit Facebook Marketplace for, if this goes for 50, 60K, every beat up third gen 4Runner you see is going to be like 20 grand on Marketplace. Oh wait, are they already 20 grand? I don't know. Hey, it's the Automotive ADHD show. Don't go anyway. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Hey, Matt West here for Spy Tech GPS, one of these show's sponsors. And you know that I am a big advocate for preventing car theft, but sometimes you can do everything in your power to prevent the theft itself. And you know what? A determined thief is determined. They will steal. If a thief is determined enough, they will steal it no matter what. And then what happens? Well, you got to find the car. How do you find it? Especially if you've got an older car, doesn't have OnStar, doesn't have Uconnect, doesn't have any of this stuff. You've got an older car that you want to keep track of. You need a dedicated GPS tracker. Don't just put an Apple AirTag in that thing. That is a terrible idea. Those AirTags let thieves know that they're being followed, by the way. It's terrible. Don't track your car with one. You need a dedicated tracker from Spy Tech GPS. I love these things. They use cell signal and GPS for redundant tracking. Get 15% off one at the Spy Tech store, SpyTech, SPYTEC.com. Promo code AutoADHD15.
No left lane hogs here. Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
I gotta know, before the break, we were talking about Toyota 4Runners, and would you spend $45,000 on a 1996 Toyota 4Runner? I forgot to mention the trim. It's an SR5. It's nothing special. Anyway, that's crossing the auction block at Mecum Auctions here pretty soon, coming up later this month. And I think this will be a pivotal moment. I talk for a living. This will be a crucial moment in the world of collecting old Toyotas, because this will be the determining factor as to whether every single old third-gen 4Runner goes for $1 bajillion on Marketplace. Go figure. This will be the thing. This will be the turning point in history. We will remember this point for decades. So anyway, let me know. Would you pay that? Would you pay for that? Let me know in an email, matt@automotiveadhd.com, or you can comment on the YouTube video of this. You can comment on Spotify. Lots of great ways to interact with the show. Speaking of that interaction, we're going to discuss some of your comments about E85 fuel, and I think debunk a few things coming up here later in the program. Now, one of the things I want to get to here is relating to Shelby. So like if you're familiar with Shelby themselves don't really make cars, and I guess you can't technically say that. They do. Shelby goes way back to the early days of performance Ford stuff, to the Mustang. And Shelby, there was a guy named Carroll Shelby, and you may know the story. Carroll Shelby was a performance guru, and Ford employed his services to make the Mustangs fast. He was also really involved with the Ford GT project. You may have seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari. That was Shelby had a big role in all of that. Now, for years since then, Shelby has done a number of things with different cars. There was a period of time where Shelby in the 1980s left Ford. Again, Shelby had his own company. Shelby didn't necessarily work for Ford, even though he was kind of the fast Ford guy, right? I'm really paraphrasing the history here. Why? Because I don't have a 3-hour Joe Rogan level podcast to go into the history. That's why. We got an hour here on the radio, you and me, for the next hour. But having said that, there was a period of time in the 1980s where Shelby went over to Dodge of all things, and made some fast-ish Dodges. Sort of fast. Shelby editions of slow Dodge K-car economy car things. There was a period of time where that happened. But Shelby, I think, throughout history has been known as being synonymous with Ford. Now, a while back, Carroll Shelby himself passed away. He was quite old. But, Shelby, as the company continues, they continue making performance cars. They continue doing factory performance modification stuff that you can go to Ford, spec out a car, get it done by Shelby, and have a really fast factory covered vehicle. Shelby's not necessarily the only one doing this. You also have Roush as a company who does it. But Shelby is possibly getting kicked to the curb once again by Ford. And I think this is an interesting decision. And I think that this, if anything, might hurt the feelings of collector car guys and classic car guys. But we'll get to what I think is going on here because I have a feeling it all had to do with the money. All had to do with the money, which is pretty much, that's pretty much anything, isn't it? It's always about the money. And did you know, to have the Shelby brand on your Ford Mustang, it cost Ford money on every single Mustang. If you bought a Shelby GT500, if you bought a Shelby GT350, it cost Ford money to have that brand on there. Because again, remember, Shelby is not internal to Ford. It is not their in-house thing. It's a separate name. It's a separate company, though their fates are somewhat intertwined, Shelby and Ford as a whole. And this comes by way of Jalopnik, Andy Kalmowitz. Hat tip to Andy over there at Jalopnik. And the Shelby name has been, of course, like I was saying, a part of Ford for a long time in various ways. And every single Mustang that they sold, by the way, every single Mustang that had the Shelby badge on it came with an $800 royalty fee for each Mustang. Now, that doesn't sound that much. Doesn't sound like that much when you're talking about cars that are, tens and tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000. You might spend a lot of money on that Shelby GT500. You want the fastest one they got, you're paying for it. Okay, $800 in royalties on each car. But here's the thing. According to this report here from Jalopnik, when you account for the fact that Ford sold 24,211 GT350s and GT350Rs during the production run, and then along with another 14,000 GT500s, that comes out to $30 million in licensing fees alone. $30 million. Now, of course, if you are buying a Shelby GT500, a GT350, if you're buying anything like that, a little bit of what you're paying for the car is going into that licensing fee. Ford's not going to eat that $800 a car licensing fee. They're going to pass that on to you, obviously. Now, here's the amazing thing that I believe is going to happen. So basically, with $30 million being tied up, and bear in mind, the number of Shelbys that existed within Ford's lineup was pretty small. All things considered, pretty small. $30 million. So Ford is looking at this decision saying that, all right, Shelby, we like you and all, but $30 million is $30 million. And we're not going to pay that anymore. And it's I think what's going to happen. Obviously, they're ditching Shelby, and then they're not necessarily. Even though you as the customer were probably paying somewhere in that whatever $70,000 you paid for that car, somewhere in that was that $800. Obviously, you're not going to get that back. They're just going to keep that $30 million to themselves across all of those different cars. I mean, that's how this works. That's how business works, right? So, having said all of this, what is Ford actually going to do? Because they still want to have fast Mustangs. This is the thing. They're ditching Shelby, but they are not getting out of the fast Mustang business. In fact, out of all of the car companies out there, Ford is indeed the only one that is doing cool V8 rear-wheel drive, manual transmission sports cars. Muscle cars, you could say. If you do recall, if you're a longtime listener of the show, we did set in stone what a muscle car is on this program. We defined it. And my show is, in fact, the leading authority on this. Leading authority, dare I say, the only authority on this. A Mustang, per the definition that I have, is a Mustang. A muscle car, rather, is something that must be rear-wheel drive, and it must have a V8, and it must be American as well. Yes, you can have the Germans make fast V8 rear-wheel drive sports cars. They're not muscle cars, though. No matter what, they're not muscle cars. It must be American V8 rear-wheel drive. Bonus points if it's a manual, but the muscle car world isn't, I think, strictly defined by manual transmissions and hasn't frankly been for a long time. I think the manual transmission is definitely something for a sports car, which that's a whole different realm. We'll get into the sports. We'll have to define that on the show next because no one else has clearly done it. So anyway, but it's got to have those factors. And by that definition, well, Ford's the only one doing it now because Dodge has the Charger. It's an EV. They have the V6. They have the Hurricane Straight Six version of that. Cool. I like turbo straight sixes. I like them a lot. It's not a muscle car. All right. Chevy had the Camaro. Had being the key word here. Past tense. Chevy had the Camaro. Chevy no longer has the Camaro. So who does that leave us? Making V8 rear-wheel drive American cars. Nobody's doing it except for Ford. Ford has the Mustang. And the Ford CEO has said before, and we've covered it on this show, that he is absolutely dedicated to the ethos of the American muscle car, that he will continue, under his watch, Ford will continue to make V8 rear-wheel drive performance cars. And they're the only kids on the block doing it now. Only kid on the block doing it, I should say. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with, all right, if they're not going to do the Shelby name, because obviously, yes, you could get a Mustang, you could get a V6 one, sure. An EcoBoost now, no V6, obviously. But you could get the EcoBoost inline 4, or you could get the GT. Well, you could go up from the GT, and you could get a Shelby GT350. You could get a Shelby GT500, all at kind of different intervals. They're not necessarily selling them all at the same time. But that's kind of been the idea, right? And now with the current chassis, which is the S650 generation of the Mustang, which is a good chassis. They are good cars. They really are. The S550 before it, basically the same car, was great. Then you had the S197 before that. That still had the solid axle. And then before that, you had the New Edge and the SN95. I had a New Edge, actually, for a number of years, way back when. I, believe it or not, was, in fact, a Mustang owner. And no crowds were harmed with my Mustang under my ownership. I don't know what happened to it after that, but I was at least responsible enough to, keep the Mustang out of the crowds at car meets. Mustangs are, they get hungry sometimes. So anyway, that leaves us with the Dark Horse lineup. You probably have heard about this as well. It's not necessarily new, but Mustang's Dark Horse brand has become the new Shelby, and they have decided to make this the performance-oriented thing. If you want a fast Mustang, you get a Dark Horse now. And now there's other versions of the Dark Horse. You can go deep into the Dark Horse realm with however much you want to spend, right? And I think this is one of those things that in a weird way makes sense, because I think, I dare I say I'm coming out in support of this, but I mean, think about this. Think about your current Mustang buyer now. You got a guy, he's in his 30s, he's making some good money at work now, and he wants a muscle car. He's a younger guy. He's not quite midlife crisis yet, but he wants a muscle car. He's not tied to the Shelby brand name like older buyers might be. Your older generation remembers Shelby and the racing heritage behind Shelby. They might be more tied to that. But your millennial buyer now, your millennial buyer who's got some income, he's not really tied to it. He just wants a fast Mustang, and if it says Dark Horse instead of Shelby, he wants that fast Mustang. So, hey, we'll talk about this and more. It's Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere.
The sweet-handling Mustang 2 Cobras. No other domestic car in its class gives you all this standard. Spoilers, stabilizer bars, staggered shocks, rack and pinion steering, steel-belted radials, and 4 on the floor. That's why Cobra takes the curves like a snake.
Handling car, Mustang 2, put one between the road and you.
When America needs a better idea, Ford puts it on wheels.
Did I just pick a commercial from like the worst Mustang that ever Mustanged? Oh, I possibly did. I mean, come on. The Mustang 2 is not that bad, is it? Is it? Anyway, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I'm your host, Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Loaded show for you today. We're having a ton of fun here on the show. If you just missed the last segment, I was talking about how Ford is getting rid of the Shelby name, saving themselves $30 million by not putting Shelby on their Mustangs anymore. And you know, that's possibly not the first time that has necessarily happened either. So the Mustang 2 is, I don't know if I have positive feelings about the Mustang 2. I don't know if many people do have Mustang feelings, positive Mustang feelings about the Mustang 2. Lots of Mustangs going on around here. There's probably a reason that, you know, people aren't going, you know, to, Mecum Auctions like we were talking about earlier and looking for Mustang 2s. There is possibly a reason for that. Anyway, so now I got to talk a little bit about speed cameras. Yes, and I do have a confession that I must make at the end of this segment. Anyway, we will get to that. But this comes by way of Car and Driver. Colorado's new speed cameras can't be outsmarted by Waze, is what it says. What does that mean? Well, what is going on here is that there is a new automated speed camera technology going into effect here in Colorado. And I am already not happy about the speed cameras in the first place, and these new speed cameras are different. The idea being that you can't outsmart them with radar detectors. You can't outsmart them with Waze. If you're not familiar with Waze, I know a lot of folks use Waze. I have it. I don't particularly use it all that much. Waze is a mapping program. Think of it like Apple Maps or Google Maps. It's the same idea. It's been around for a while. And the thing that it does do, though, is it allows users to generate their own reports of things. So if you're using Waze, you can say, hey, there's an obstacle in the road here. Do a thing, and it says there's an obstacle in the road, or there's debris in the road. And then what will happen is all the other Waze users will see that someone else generated a report for this one area. And usually it's something you can do really simply. You're not having to fumble around on your phone to send these reports in, you know. But you can report things as well, like speed traps. That is possibly the number one reason that people use Waze. Now, you can do that on Apple Maps. You can tell your phone, you can go, hey, Siri, report a speed trap. And, okay, good, mine wasn't listening. You can do that. Maybe if yours was listening in the car, I just reported a speed trap if you're listening to this show in the car. Oh, no, I don't know. I can tell your Siri to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Hey, Siri, call mom. No. Got to make sure mine's not doing it. Hold on. Oh, man. Anyway, so You could do that with other things, but Waze is kind of the original for doing that, right? And I have Waze. Again, I don't use it day to day, but if I'm doing a road trip, I find that more users use Waze, and therefore there are more reports. Well, let me correct this here. I got to step back. More users who use Waze generate reports than I find on Apple Maps or Google Maps. Yes, you can generate reports of speed traps, construction, debris in the road, a wreck. You can do all of that stuff on Apple Maps, on Google Maps. But the number of people who are actively doing it is pretty low because with Waze has kind of created a user community of people who do that. So the reports are more accurate because there's more people who are using that app who are actually doing the reports. Yes, technically more people probably have Apple Maps. Less of them are engaged enough to actually submit reports of stuff when they see it. Make sense? So with Waze, that has been the go-to of people, especially on long road trips, cannonballers even, who want to know what's lying ahead, be that a speed trap, be that a construction zone, whatever, right? So when you're looking at this, again, Waze has a lot of uses. Let's be honest. Majority of people are using it to spot speed traps. Let's just be real about it. No one's trying to hide that. And the thing is with this, these speed cameras, these are dastardly. These are sneaky because what they are doing, again, is going to bypass your Waze. It's going to bypass, if you've got a nice radar detector, it's going to bypass that. It's not going to be using radar necessarily. The way it works is really simple. There's a camera on the front end of a speed zone, and there's a camera on the back end of the speed zone. And it's logging every single license plate and camera that it sees, and then is timing how long it takes for you to get through that zone. This is almost a weird way. Yes, there's radar technology. Yes, there's stuff. Yes, they use spotter planes. They use drones now for speed enforcement. They do all of this stuff. And this is almost sort of a caveman way to do it. It's the equivalent of having a guy standing there at one point with a stopwatch and a guy at the other end with a stopwatch and comparing how long it takes for you to go from point A to point B and therefore determining your average speed. Now, of course, it's doing this in an automated fashion, but it is a very basic way to do it. In a weird way, it's a somewhat low-tech way to do it. Now, where the high-tech portion of it comes in is it's got to track license plates, it's got to communicate with servers, that's all the high-tech stuff. But the actual way that it's tracking your speed is really basic. It's very basic. Now, you might be saying, well, what's the problem with that? Well, it's the automated enforcement is what bugs me. And it's the principle that bugs me about this is the same thing that bugs me about regular speed cameras with radar on them. My objection to these is no different just because they are technically using a different means of speed enforcement. Yes, I'm a little annoyed that this is a means of speed enforcement that is a little harder to, do anything about. Now, I'm not advocating that you go and speed. I'm not trying to tell you to do that. If you're listening to this and as you listen to the show, that's not my point. My point is not, well, I'm mad because I want to speed through here. That's not my point. My point is that these automated enforcement mechanisms are terrible. These are awful. You should need a actual police officer to be able to write you a ticket for speeding. Like if you committed a crime, if you committed a infraction, we'll say, speeding doesn't become it's an infraction up to a certain point, then it does become a crime after a certain threshold. But generally speaking, if you're going to commit a infraction with speeding, it should absolutely be something that an officer writes you a ticket for, an actual police officer. And you might say, whoa, what about these tickets? They say they're reviewed by real officers. I bet you they're not. I really, truly bet you they're not. And I'll tell you about that a little bit later with my confession that we'll get to here on the program. But I've got some stories about that. However, when it comes to this, the reason you want an officer writing the ticket here is because an officer has a lot of discretion. For better or for worse, a police officer has discretion when it comes to writing you a ticket. Were you speeding for a good reason? Yeah, you might be able to get through that if you had a legitimate reason, a legitimate emergency that perhaps you were dealing with. There's a number of reasons why a police officer would give you leniency on this. But the other notion is that you should absolutely be able to be able to see who's actually, charging you with this. Is there an actual police officer who's charging you with it? Not an automated thing that sends you a ticket in the mail. And then the automated ticket is also problematic because it creates an issue of, well, who do you ticket? Who do you ticket? When it comes to these, a lot of these automated enforcement action type things, they just ticket the registered owner of the vehicle, because there's long been an issue of like, well, if you're going to write me a speeding ticket, an automated camera speeding ticket, well, what if I wasn't driving? And then they'll say, well, who was driving? Well, of course, you're not going to, rat out whoever was driving, and you're under no obligation to do that, legally speaking. You're under no obligation to incriminate somebody else. And legally, the legal system shouldn't be able to say, well, you couldn't tell us who else was driving, so we're going to charge you. That's not how the legal system works. That's not how the whole ethos of you are presumed innocent until guilty works. You can't say, well, you're guilty unless you can prove to us who else was driving your car. That gets to the core of this problem, why I hate these automated enforcement systems. That gets to the very ethos of what I find objectionable to them, is there's issues with the logistics of doing this. There's issues with who do you write the ticket to. Now, like I said, a lot of people, a lot of places who do this have given up on the idea now of proving that you were the driver. A lot of municipalities and places have now written their laws in such a way that you do not need to, you might say, well, I wasn't driving. You can't prove that was me. They go, well, we don't need to. It's just, we just ticket the registered owner of the vehicle. It doesn't matter if you were driving or not. Our law now says that we ticket the registered owner of the vehicle. And then how does that, okay, how is that if you have in this country, on any crime, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, that completely flies in the face of that principle. Because you're saying, well, there's no way to prove who was driving it, so we're just going to arbitrarily ticket the owner of the vehicle. And then they get by this. Here's the next objection. They say that, well, these tickets don't come with points and they're not actually a crime. They're a civil penalty infraction, whatever. They come up with a different name for it. And then by doing that, they say, well, we're not actually charging you with a crime. This is just infraction that requires you to pay us money. But it's not a crime. It's not a crime. We didn't charge you with a crime. We didn't presume you were innocent. We didn't presume you were guilty until you could prove that you were innocent, because there's no crime. There's no problem. You just need to give us money to make this go away. And if you don't make this go away, then we can suspend your registration. Then we can report you to debt collections. We can do all sorts of stuff that you don't want to do. So that's the problem. They're getting around the whole issue with these automated systems. The issue, again, to reframe that, the issue is you can't prove who the driver was. You can't prove I was driving that. Therefore, you can't charge me with anything. They then skirt around that by saying, well, it's not a crime, so we can do that. And we don't need you to prove that you were driving or not, because we're just going to ticket the owner of the vehicle. And then that's written into the laws. The local municipalities put that into the code. The states put that into the laws. The representatives go all in on this. And then here we have a system where it feels like your rights in a way are being violated with this automated enforcement, but then they tell you, well, they're really not. That's what I find wrong with this. And that's why I hate that they're finding more ways to make it harder to avoid these things. We're going to continue this discussion, and I'll get to my confession after the break. It's Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
He brushes his teeth with 5W30. Matt West is on Automotive ADHD.
All right, we are wrapping it up here. Fourth half of the show. How do you have four halves? I don't know. I didn't think that one through. It is the Automotive ADHD show. And even though it's the last segment, we got a lot of stuff to get to here. Now, before the break, I was talking about automated enforcement systems, specifically the new speed cameras coming to Colorado. Worth clarifying a couple of small things: that the ticket price for it, if you do get it, it's $75. They're saying they will do them in construction zones primarily, but, well, we have yet to see that. It always starts with something like that, and then they just start putting them everywhere. But now with that, the other thing that is worth mentioning is right now it does look like If anything, it might encourage people to not have license plates because the system currently relies on license plates. So, there's already plenty of people driving around without license plates. You might see more of it now. Anyway, couple of little notes. If you missed that last story we covered there, check it out on the podcast here after the radio show. Now, speaking of enforcement actions, automated enforcement actions, as I'm calling them, I think that is what they are called. I have a confession. I got in trouble. I got busted. Yes, we will talk. I will divulge this here on the radio show, but it exemplifies exactly what I find wrong with this system. So what I got right here is a ticket that you're looking at. Notice of a red light ticket. Look at that. There it is. There's my very own red light ticket. And you're probably saying, oh my gosh, Matt, I can't believe you blew through a red light. I didn't, and I don't. I don't blow through red lights. And I even have proof of that with this. Now, I'm only covering up, if you're watching on video, I'm only covering up my address. The rest of this, I mean, you can see the notice number, the PIN number, like when you go to pay this online, you put the PIN number in and you can see a video of it. So yeah, there it is. If you want to see my violation on the internet, those people on the internet who care to do that, you could do that. You can even go pay it for me if you want. There, see, I'll show it again so you can see it. Just covering up my, actual mailing address there. So what this does have, I'll flip it around here to the back. This guy has a picture of me in my truck. I was in the Tacoma, and there's a picture of, you could kind of make out the picture of me there. There's my plate. There's my Tacoma. There are some things you will notice with this, and there are some things that you will see, especially should you actually watch the video of it. Again, if you go to their website, you put the number in and the PIN number in that they have on here, you can watch the video. And this exemplifies why I was saying in the last segment, you need an officer who has discretion writing these tickets, because this ticket, I watched the video. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you kidding? Why am I getting a red light camera ticket? I don't run red lights, okay? And I have another red light camera ticket story. This isn't the first one I've gotten. I don't get them often, but each time I've gotten one, it's been completely bogus. This one, I watched the video. We'll roll it if you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and more. We'll roll it in the video here. For the benefit of my radio and podcast listeners, I go through the intersection. I slow down. Now, this is the intersection up north in Colorado Springs, Voyager and Interquest. Big intersection. And if you're turning right from Voyager, which I was going south on Voyager, turning right, there is a right turn lane that you go in. And then when you get onto Interquest, there is a merge lane for that right lane. You turn right. You're not turning right into traffic. You get your own merge lane after you turn right. Now, I was turning right on red, and I will acknowledge this. If you're watching the video, well, Matt, I didn't see you come to a complete stop. I came to almost a complete stop. Almost. But technically, yes, you can say by the letter of the law, it wasn't perfectly a complete stop. Turning right on red. Now, bear in mind, if you're watching the lights on that intersection, the lights had just changed. I was about to get a green going this way. You had turning traffic going the other way. So the entire intersection stopped, and east and westbound traffic was turning, which don't intersect at all with where I was going. So I came to a near stop with my truck, and you can even see me. If you look at the picture of me on this ticket here, you can see me checking my cross traffic, looking to the side. There was nobody there. And the light had changed. The entire intersection went cold, basically. I checked my cross traffic, and then I go turn right. Bear in mind, I'm turning right on red into my own turn lane. Or my own merge lane. After I turn right, I've got room to get up to speed and merge. So even if you ran this in the busy intersection, if you went straight through this right on red, it wouldn't matter because you have a merge lane. It shouldn't even have a light for that right turn. The right turn itself shouldn't even have a light because it has a merge lane. It's absurd. So there we go. There's my case. That's my case. You can watch the video and see if I'm totally full of it. I'm sure someone will. I look forward to it. But that's my case on this. And that's where officer discretion would have been relevant. A cop would have never pulled me over doing that maneuver, nor was that maneuver dangerous in any conceivable fashion. A police officer would have never pulled me over for that. And yet here I am with a ticket being demanded, being shaken down by the city of Colorado Springs police, the Colorado Springs Police Department. They're shaking me down here for $75. And again, that's why I have an issue with automated enforcement when it comes to red light cameras, when it comes to these speed cameras, when it comes to these new speed camera systems they're implementing. They're purely for revenue, in my opinion, especially this. And then it has this nice little thing. It says, a officer has reviewed the footage, and there's a thing. It says reviewed by so-and-so. I can't even read their cursive. Yeah, it's a crazy signature there. And anyway, they say, I have probable cause to believe the defendant committed the offense as indicated above. Did you? Did you actually watch the video? Because if you did, there should be no ticket for that. No sane officer would do a ticket for that. It's bonkers. Now, the other red light camera story I have, which again, I have two sample size. I have a sample size of 2. And I have a problem with these red light cameras. I really do. I don't like them. And by extension, again, the speed cameras. But the other one, and I don't know if I have the ticket. I'd have to find it. Was in the city of Boulder. I was helping a buddy go pick up his Volvo 240 wagon. He was buying it from a guy in Boulder. So I went up with my truck and trailer. And because I'm the friend with the trailer. So I end up getting kind of conscribed into these sorts of things. And so what ends up happening is I go up to Boulder, and there's a 35-mile-an-hour zone through Boulder. And I have the truck and trailer. I have it loaded up with the car. The entire rig weighs like 10,000 pounds nearly. And the light goes green, yellow, red really quick. It goes pretty quick. So, and I had already entered the intersection with some good speed. I was doing the speed limit when I entered the intersection. And the issue here is that my truck entered the intersection when the light was, in fact, just turning yellow. So I was in the intersection when the light turned yellow. So I am totally in the clear. However, the red light camera got a picture of not my truck in the intersection, the trailer. The trailer has its own license plate. It got a picture of the trailer, and the red light camera ticket was not written to my truck. It was written to my trailer, even though the truck, and by all intents and purposes, the vehicle, if you want to consider the quote unquote vehicle as being the truck and trailer together, had in fact entered the intersection at the appropriate time, the legal time to do that. Now you might say, yeah, well, you should be going fast. You know, even if you're going the speed limit, you need to make sure you're going fast enough that you can slow your load down, you know, when you need to, right? So even though the speed limit is 35, you should have gone down. You should have been going slower so you could slow your load down, right? Someone might say that. And the fact is that when I watched the video, and remember, when you do get one of these tickets, you can not only see the pictures on the back, you can go watch the video of it. I watched the video and I counted that yellow light. The yellow light was like maybe 2 seconds. It was actually shockingly short. That's why this was a while ago. I would need to go back and see if I can find this and if the video still exists. It was shockingly short. So even say if I had been doing, instead of 35, the speed limit through there, had I been doing 25 or had I been doing 15, do you realistically believe that even at that low of a speed that I could see the light, react to the light, and then slow my 10,000 pound combo of truck, trailer, and car on trailer all together, slow that down in 2 seconds? Yeah, really. Yeah, think about that one for a second. So you can kind of see why I'm a little jaded when it comes to these automated enforcement systems, and why when you get tickets like this that are very obvious, again, a real police officer would not have written you a ticket for it, yet they still insist on the ticket. I was not able to contest the one in Boulder, in fact. I had emailed them. I'd done a bunch of stuff to try to protest it. They basically said I would have to go appear in court in Boulder to contest it. I don't live in Boulder. That's an hour-and-a-half drive for me, one way. So that, plus taking time off from work to go do it, plus the fuel, would have been more than the $75. So they know that. They absolutely know that. The system is designed with that in mind. It is absolutely designed with that in mind. Now, this one is for the city of Colorado Springs, not an hour-and-a-half drive from me. In fact, the courthouse is maybe 15 minutes from the radio studio. So I'll probably go contest this one, and I will see if I win it. Because, yes, you can say by the letter of the law, I technically didn't come to a complete stop there. But look at the context of the situation. No cop would actually have written me a ticket for that. So I will give you a follow-up on that. But if this has happened to me twice, think of how many other people this happens to. And they just go, look, man, I don't have the time to mess with this. At least for me, I can go mess with this ticket. I can go try to contest it. It's $75, 0 points still. And then I can tell you about it. So at least for me, I can turn this into sort of a business thing. Okay, I'm going to go do the ticket, and then I'm going to tell you how it went on the radio. But for your average folk, I mean, they don't have the time to deal with this. And that's why I am so against automated enforcement systems. It's not that I support people running red lights. It's not that I support people speeding recklessly through construction zones. The other question here, is how effective are these really? Because city councils across the nation will tell you these are effective. Well, effective at what? Because the people who run red lights and actually cause accidents and who actually kill people running red lights oftentimes are blazing that red light, double the speed limit, triple the speed limit. Half the time they're on drugs, half the time they're drunk. And do you really think that, our red light cameras are going to give people a second thought? They're going to think twice before they go through this intersection. Do you think the guy who's cracked out on drugs and he's high, he's drunk, and he's going through that intersection at 120, do you think he cares about the red light camera? No, he's still going to hit the family in the minivan who's crossing the intersection. These don't do anything to stop that. So anyway, that's all the time we got for here on the radio show today. I'm going to address the comments I got about E85 in a podcast bonus here after the radio show. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Reach out to the show. You can always email me, matt@automotiveadhd.com. You can find the show on YouTube. Subscribe to it there. Don't miss a minute of this program. We'll see you here on the radio next week.